Welcome to Veronica Live, and I'm here today with my wingman. We've got John Salick. He's always my co-pilot, most of my shows. And then we've got a local guest that he does a lot of politics. Every time I talk to him, I'm on the phone for an hour. And so I was like, oh my gosh, we have to do a show. And I wanted to welcome Rex Reid to Veronica Live for the first time.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
And you are Bay County's former vice chairman of the Republican Executive Committee. You are part of the Republican Liberty Caucus. You've done all kinds of politics. And I wanted to talk local with you. And then, of course, the big picture with Trump and everything. And you live over on the beach. And recently, Mayor Tetemer beat Mayor Sheldon on the beach, and it was quite a coup. And I know you know what's going on over there at the beach. So give us a little picture of what's happening at Panama City Beach.
Okay, well, that's right. We beat the good old boy, if you will, or Mayor Tetemer did. So that was a stroke for taking on well, we won't say what the name of the mafia is, but let's just say the local mafia. But unfortunately, that leaves us, let's say, a 3-2 disadvantage on the council because they had one of their other good old boys who took over Mr. Chester's position. That actually it's a sad thing because nobody ran against him, and nobody actually ran against another good old boy on the council as well. So it's kind of 3-2. And if you can believe this, which I don't think anybody could believe it if you knew this going in, but one of the most important boards to be on as a city councilman is the TDC, which decides how we get and allocate money that comes in from the Tourist Development Council, how it spends the bed tax. And those three ganged up to make sure that the new mayor would not be on the TDC. As a matter of fact, they even put the newest member who ran unopposed, Councilman Register, on the board instead of the mayor to add insult to injury. And then they doubled down on their malfeasance and kept the former mayor, who lost 60-40, mind you, kept the former mayor on the airport board, with the excuse of the reason they did it is because it was his turn to be president. Well,
you live out there, and I must say I had Mayor Tetemer on after he won because I didn't think he was going to win. And I was like, oh, there's not a lot of presence on his Facebook. And then when he won, I was literally shocked. And that just showed me that people were frustrated. And I did see they went after Mayor Sheldon with a vengeance. And, I think Mayor Sheldon's done some good things because I do like his festivals he puts on here in the spring and the fall because it does bring a lot of people to our region. But all of the hate seemed to be that's the only reason he'd run was because he was trying to, put more money in his coffers. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's, I didn't think anything of it the first time that he ran. I didn't think that much about it. But he kind of ended up in the perfect storm because you had, we're in kind of a season of our own discontent of hating anything that is an incumbent. But then you go and add to it that he's getting TDC money, right, to advertise his concert that, generally speaking, from what I understand, sells out within the first 24 hours. So there's no need to advertise for this concert and spend $350,000 of TDC money.
That's a lot. I didn't realize it was that much. Wow.
That's my understanding. It's $350,000, and it's, like I say, it's my understanding it sells out within 24 hours. And most of the people that come now are ones that obviously have already been, and they buy their tickets for next year. I've been told, I don't have this confirmed, before they even leave this year, or shortly thereafter, as soon as he makes the tickets available and gets the lineup. So I think you put that together with the traffic problems and all those things, and it was in hindsight was an easy win. Almost no one thinks you're going to beat the incumbent.
No,
right?
I honestly didn't see it coming. But I have to say,
Yeah.
when he came on my show, and I really knew nothing about him, I thought Mayor Tetemare had a great background. I mean, he worked for Amazon. He's lived in other cities. He was a visionary. So I'm just frustrated because who would want to be a weak mayor? I don't know. I just don't feel like they have any power.
Well, I mean, at least that makes your job, quote unquote, easier. I don't know that it actually does. You still get the blame for everything, but you have no power to change it. The thing that struck me the most about it, and I don't know if this was in people's thinking for me, but, I find it incredibly, almost unbelievable in America, and especially in a red state, in a red town, in a red county, that anyone would vote for Mayor Sheldon after he went and made it mandatory that they ganged up and had a vote to make people wear masks. To me, on the face value, that should have been disqualifying, and he shouldn't have got a single vote. But
that's shocking. I forgot about that. Oh gosh, you say masks, and I get PTSD. Yes. I really do. A woman in her 50s wearing a mask. We have PTSD, people.
It's sad people are still wearing masks, but Rex, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, it was interesting that when we talked to the new mayor, he did the basic retail politics. He went out and talked to people. He said, what do you not like? What's wrong with the city? What can I fix? I'm here to listen. And
locals first was his motto.
Right.
I loved it.
And that's always what politics is about, is the local issues is what drives people to vote for you or not. So I was surprised, but then I wasn't surprised, because after talking to him, it's like you did the work. You did it the way you're supposed to do, and you'll win every time you do it that way.
Yeah, well, obviously, that's all politics is local, not whether it ends up being whoever the president is or who isn't. And that's one of the things that I've tried to, I guess maybe warn might be the right word. The new mayor is that a lot of the things that are going to happen to you over the next 4 years, and especially if you're a 3-2 advantage, are not going to be in your control. And you take out let's say the appearance of corruption, at least with the TVC, and the things that people are pissed the most about here on the beach right now is the Front Beach Road CRA project and how that I would say construction, is going on, and that's not going to be within his control, at least not most of it for 4 years.
Well, it's interesting because even in Panama City is not, Mayor Rowan's in the same situation. We see the brouhaha going on up in Lynn Haven. I was talking to a lady today about it, and she was somewhat shocked at what was going on up there with the mayor, not the mayor, but the city council and the lack of accountability
with the police chief.
With the police chief, and it's like, when do when do politicians that are elected to represent the people, when do they actually get up and stand up for their constituents versus being bulldozed? Well,
and that's one of the other things that I had, talked to the mayor about. The current mayor, to me, now I'm a different person. Everybody has a different personality. But I just don't get the sense personally, and I wrote this in an article for the Bay County Coastal, the new paper in Bay County, that the people want the mayor to stand up there and fight for them. And just recently, they moved the election from April to November. Now, they did this because they think Sheldon lost because people didn't show up in November. Well, they tried this about 4 years ago thinking that was a better plan. Plus, the big money comes into play, right? The local special interests can pump in the money. And then when you're in the cycle with president or governor or senator or congressman, you're just kind of lost in the wash. And the supervisor of elections even told them that with the county races being there, there'll be 140,000, I think she said it was, undervotes for county commissioners. So, PCB percentage-wise will be that bad or worse. But they did it anyway, and it just didn't seem like from a casual observer watching the meetings and having spoke against it, having been the only person that spoke for or against it, period, at the meetings. I believe it didn't seem like he was putting up a fight. Of course, you're going to lose 3-2 either way, but I think the people, like you're saying, back to the retail part, every council meeting, and this was the knock on Mayor Sheldon, that he seemed arrogant. Every council meeting is a political rally / speech debate, and you need to command that if you want the voters to rally around you. When he was inaugurated, I went to the meeting, and I knew what was going on, but I just kind of punked some people. I'm like, why the hell is everybody here? Because it was standing room only, right, to celebrate how good a job they did. Well, all of those people have since disappeared, and there was like 5 people at the last council meeting because a host of reasons, but one of them being, hey, they want somebody to fight for, fight with, and help them out. Once they speak about something, they want somebody up there on the council to reinforce that they're right. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. But back to what John said, because the Beacon of the Bay put out a poll if Chief Ramey should be fired, and more than 600 people said it was like 620 against 10. And then I watched that commission meeting, and I talked to people that were there. It was literally a full house, and all these people gave up and gave speeches to include James Finch, calling them out, and they refused. They called that order to censure Vicky Gaynor, and nobody would second it, and so it was all these eloquent speeches of let's fire this guy and censure her, and nobody did anything. So now what happens is my question.
Well, I hope that, I mean, there's only for us, at least from a Panama City Beach perspective, Councilman Castro will be gone in 2 years. And then hopefully we can elect someone that will help support the mayor and Councilman, I believe it's Colburn, Mary Colburn's position of kind of busting up the cabal. But I mean, make no mistake about it. The powers to be know that when they lose the Castro seat, then it flips 3-2 in support of the mayor's position. So they're going to be coming out with all the money they can drum up to make sure they replace Castro with another one of their, let's just say, puppets. Would probably be the best way to say it.
So how do you think the theme that kind of played out in the last election was the locals, and I say that loosely because it's the newcomers. They've built so much out there. The character of the people that live on the beach has changed dramatically, and that seemed to be what was driving the change. And it's the theme was, we're tired of the traffic. We're the tourists, we like the tourists, but, we live here, and we don't like to hide in our houses, because we're afraid to go to the grocery store. It's going to take us, 2 hours to drive a mile to the Publix kind of thing. And do you think in the next election that's going to continue?
Oh, yeah. No, matter of fact, I'm putting together a series of articles, and I've already written a resolution that I'm going to try and get the city to pass, try and get the county to pass, since they both have members on the TDC. Kind of we, the people, the citizens here, are tired of taxation without consideration. And what I mean by that is, and hopefully Mr. Raffield, who I believe this was one of his campaign slogans, let's, make the tourists pay their fair share. I hate that word, so pardon me for using it. Because it's been misused, but once I explain what I'm saying, you'll get it. So right now, just for example, our county taxes and our city special assessments are assessed. They say it's a non-value added tax, but it's based on what my house is worth. So we know that's a lie. But let's just say whatever basis of value they use, they tax the tourists or the rentals the same they do the residents. And let's say Bay County, for example, they have a huge fire presence out here, because every time somebody gets an owie that's on vacation, they roll an EMT, they roll a cop or a sheriff, and they roll a fire engine. So obviously they weigh on our services more. So the city council itself, to your point, I've brought this up in the last couple meetings. They're going to have a chance to give us, I don't care what they call it, homestead exemption, local exemption, or whatever, but our fire assessment bills are going to be coming out soon. And there's no way that I should be paying at the same rate without a deduction for being a local here as the people who rent their units. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it
Well,
does.
So
yeah,
we're going to ask.
I just got my fire tax bill a couple of days ago. And
Okay.
I mean, to me, that's kind of like, well, that's on everybody, that lives here. And I think this thing about the tourists paying their fair share, you look at the tourist taxes, and I mean, you stay in a hotel, the TDC tax whacks you, this whacks you. I mean, I've traveled so much, I believe me, I've seen the places where they just try to bleed the tourists for everything.
Vegas, resort tax for tying your shoe.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and
at some point, it becomes counterproductive because you're driving away your customers, in the name of taxing.
Well, okay. Well, all right. Well, first, I'm not advocating any more "quote unquote" tourist on tax on tourists. For example, the TDC is limited what they can spend on public safety. Now, this affects your property tax and your fire assessment tax. The TDC is limited by the state legislature, which, if you don't know, only 4 counties have the right to technically spend on public safety 10%. That number should go to 20% easily, because there is no way that the tourists are impacting the public services, the fire. I had a discussion with the attorney about this. You don't pay for the fire department to save your house. You pay for it just to be there in case it does.
Right.
But there is no way that this should be equalized or weighted equally. I've lived in my house for 8 years. I've never called the cops. I've never called the fire department. I've never had an ambulance here. I can take you right across the street from my house to a place over here on the beach that's going to pay $20 more for their fire assessment. And I am not against them having spring breakers there. I'm not against them filling up their hot tub, hooping and hollering. They can do whatever they want. That's fine, as long as they don't assault anyone. But the number of times the cops, the fire engine, and the EMTs have been there is obviously astronomical in proportion to mine. So they have burdened the system a hell of a lot more than $20.
What about all the drownings? I mean, and I don't feel like we have enough resources when it comes to people don't follow the flags. They don't understand the flags. They show up, then they drown. I mean, how many people have drowned this year? 12 or more? I lost count. Right. I don't even know.
Well, and I don't have a problem with taxes targeted at those kind of activity. If the tourists, the people in the water that need rescuing are usually the dumbasses from out of town.
And they're drunk, yes.
Right. And so I don't have a problem with using like TDC money for the lifeguard system, for some of the beach patrol cops, those types of things. I'm fine with using the money for that. That should be what a lot of it goes towards, because that's what keeps the beaches safe and people coming back. But, some of the basics are like you pointed out, having the fire engines there, that's what you're paying the fire tax for. And whether they get used or not, they still need to be there. And
well, I learned something, though, because I have friends that live out at Camp Creek. And do you remember when they had that arsonist burn down their clubhouse and all kinds of stuff for $12 million, ruined it? The fire would not go out. And for more than 2 weeks, 2 of my friends had to do guard duty. I had some sort of name, fire duty, at night, because the fire trucks were like, just call us if it catches on fire more, because the fire did not go out. And it did. They had to call them back a few times. And I was like, well, why do we pay taxes? At 2 a.m, I have to watch and see if a fire's happening. I was shocked, actually, on that.
Well, that's all part of the equation. Look, it is not tax-free or cost-free when those engines roll, or the EMTs. Somebody told me it was $2,500 per pop. I'm guessing it's probably more like $5,000 per pop. So they are draining the system, not at the same weight that we are draining the system. Take our community, for example. There's roughly 20,000 people here. That equates to somewhere less than 10,000 households if you base it on that. Look, and then take a ride out here and look at our fire stations. You're building the frickin' Taj Mahal, and I'm picking up the equal weighted amount, the same as the quote-unquote rentals would.
So from a fire perspective, were citizens. They were all citizens, and for more than 2 weeks were on fire duty. I literally was appalled because, then they were smelling all this stuff, and I was like, they're not even the fire people. So I'm frustrated. It doesn't sound like things are the way they need to be on the beach, Rex.
Well, this is also countywide too, and that's why I'm going to take it to the county commission as well. Is because if the TDC were to pump in 20% of their budget for public safety, and I had this discussion with them when we were talking about the drownings, and this is the way politicians react to things. First, they don't go to the root cause analysis and get to the actual fix, which I'm trying to do, and if we have time, I can explain to what I'm trying to do about the drownings, to actually go at one of the root causes. You can't, it's kind of like the fire pyramid. You got to take out one of the three elements. But it affects the county, affects your ad valorem tax, and you can easily take the TDC money and put that in there. But sadly, it takes an act of the legislature to change that from 10 to 20%. And that can be done because, if I'm not mistaken, rumor has it that Mr. Trumbull will be the Senate president. I could be wrong about that. But either way, we have two very competent representatives. They could easily put forth a bill to have that changed in Bay County.
He is going to be the Senate president. That is true.
Yeah, well, and they've already agreed that it's 10%. Well, that's just not enough, right? In a tourist town like we have. Look, back to the word. I'm not opposed to paying my fair share. And I'm not trying to look to fleece the tourists any more than what is, and I say appropriate. There is no appropriate fleecing amount. But they should at least be on the hook for the impact that they cause. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as long as the burden is evenly divided, it shouldn't. Back to if the tax is based on a per structure, and I can't recall off reading my tax what the basis was for formulating the amount of money, but if it's based on your property value, square footage, the type of house and stuff you have, I don't know what they base this fire tax on.
It's based on. So if you go to the county tax website, it's based on the top number, which is basically your building value. Now they will lie, Councilman. Well, let's just say they'll use a euphemism. I don't want to use that strong a word. They'll use a euphemism that is not a value-added tax. Well, if my house is not value-added to my lot, I got ripped off and my mortgage needs to be canceled. So first, it is a value-added tax. But then, for example, in my subdivision, like I said, there's a home right across the street from me, and given that its footprint is 1,800 square feet, but if the property value is really worth $3 million because it's on the beach, it's going to pay $20 more in that fire tax than I'm going to pay. And every year, 3 to 5 times a year, the cops, the fire, and the police or EMTs are showing up over there for some reason. That is not equally weighted and distributed amongst the taxpayers evenly based on their impact.
Yeah, but you're talking about, your home probably, I'm presuming you homesteaded, because you live there, and the property across the street is not, because it's commercial property.
No, that has nothing to do with it, John. That was the whole point of my discussion with the city council. We don't have a homestead exemption for that fire tax like we do at the county level, because that's a straight tax. What do they call that? An excise fee or what?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, your property taxes out there are different than the county. Yeah, that's one thing that gets me about the beach, because you've got the city and then you got the county out there, and it's like, talk about not being treated equally.
Yeah. So you're not in the city.
No, I'm talking. Yeah,
you're not in Panama City Beach.
Right. I'm talking about the county side, but and I understand. I forgot y'all don't. You don't pay the ad valorem property tax out there, right?
Yes, we do. No, we pay both. See, we're double taxed.
I thought y'all didn't. That you had that 1% merchants tax.
Yes, no, we don't.
Maybe that got me all confused now, because I thought the merchants tax was why you didn't have to pay the ad valorem property tax.
Okay, all right. So, all right, correct. We pay an ad valorem tax to the county.
Okay.
Then we do special assessments for the CRA, for fire, and I'm not sure what the other one is. And then that 1% covers that. Covers the rest of the taxes that you're talking about.
Rex, when are you running for mayor? Because obviously you know what's going on over there, and does Mayor Tetemer have any allies? That's the question. Because he seems like a good guy, but the old school still wants the Mayor Sheldon way, but that's not who won. So how do you see it?
Yeah. Well, sadly, I don't see any change until we get to the next election, unless we can get one of them to say, or maybe even agree. I think I made a good case to them. The city has, the council asked the folks to consider a local exemption, homestead exemption, whatever you want to call it, on the special assessment based on the information I've given you already, right? So the state recognizes homestead, the county recognizes there's a homestead exemption, then the city should recognize there's a homestead exemption. But other than that, I don't see any path to change until we get a new member and it changes the dynamic on the council. And sadly, to your point, now I don't know the ins and outs of Lynn Haven. It does not look good on the surface coming and going, past events during Michael and now. But, politicians, generally speaking, their motto is first do no harm to my next campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Get reelected is their job.
Rex, don't make me pull out the bottle of whiskey already.
Yeah. So Rex, do you think any of the new developments that are going in, they're building like crazy up 79. They got the new hospital going in. All the way up to the Margaritaville or Latitudes area. Yep. Do you think any of that's going to get incorporated into the city, or do you see a push to expand the city's footprint to the north?
Well, if it were me and I lived out there, I'd fight like hell. Because
which way?
They're against it.
Okay.
When I first moved here, I thought it was counterintuitive. It seemed to me, especially from back to what we're talking about, from a fire and police service perspective. To me, from an efficiency person, right, being a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, it seemed inefficient. Why do you have double the cops, and this also impacts drownings, right? Because now you're fighting over money from the TDC for extra lifeguards and all this other stuff, right? And that's divided, and the more it divides, the worse it gets, right? So you would have one good command structure. But after living in the city and watching the actions of the city council and who actually gets their people onto the council, I would fight like hell to the death to make sure that the city limits were not expanded 1 inch. And as a matter of fact, I would fight like hell on my side, even if it were going to reduce my tax burden, because I would not want any of my fellow Floridians to be living under another layer of tyranny that did the mass, that closed the beach, and learned nothing and didn't even apologize. I presented to the council slides on the PowerPoint, even behind them and with them, 67 years of data on the lack of efficacy of those silly masks. Even donated, I gave the city manager at the meeting $500, and I said, if you can get the N95 mask, I will distribute them to the most vulnerable, the elderly, and teach them how to wear the N95 mask, because that's the only thing that works. And they still voted 5-0 to institute a mask mandate, which, by the way, the city employees did not follow.
Rex,
no, I presented the whole
You're
data.
our next mayor, buddy. I'm going to be your campaign manager.
So what, Rex, why does Panama City Beach exist as a governmental entity then?
Well, you'd have to talk to Ken Nelson. If you read he wrote a history of Panama City Beach on Nextdoor, and I couldn't really talk to it to be, let's say, I'm not proficient in it. I didn't study what he wrote. I read it, but, it's kind of one of those pipe dreams of, a couple guys were sitting down here at Dusty's in the bar or some whatever, and then say, God dang it, let's get us a mayor. Yeah, let's get, it's 1972.
Okay. Enough about the beach. Let's transition a little bit to local politics.
Maybe Veronica can become mayor of Shell Island.
Yes, I have the hat.
Now, see, that's
I was
the
out
position.
there yesterday.
And Veronica, I really appreciate it. I've actually had people offer to pay for me to run. Before Stewart got in, I had someone who said, I'll pay your filing fee. They asked me to run, actually get a post office box in Jarman's district and run like, somebody else did here against McConnell. One, that violates my ethical principle. But the other one is let's just say, if you've ever seen a Taiwanese Congress meeting, then that would be more my. I don't know that I could. I had to suck it up working in corporate America, but I don't know that I can.
Because back to Lynn Haven, and when I watched that meeting the other day, and it was so disgusting, and now you have a police chief that said he had a medical emergency and the only reason he was caught at 2 or 3 in the morning leaving Newbies was because Newbies had a camera.
Yeah.
And this person gets a slap on the hand, and as a military woman, DUIs, they don't fly. As a military officer, I should say, and they're career enders. And literally everybody's complained to me because they don't want this man leading the force anymore. And I don't know how Lynn Haven can move forward. I mean, just to bring it back to Lynn Haven, even though I'm trying to get to the next level of politics with you two, I'm so frustrated. And I'm always the complaint box, unfortunately, for Bay County.
Well, they give you plenty to complain about. This, if people just did their job, well, then hell, we wouldn't have anything to talk about. You wouldn't even need a podcast.
Yeah, that's true. Well, so let's transition a little bit to local politics. I was very thankful George Norris won, and I, wrote his ads and helped cut his radio ads, and he ran those for a couple months. So I had no doubt he was gonna not win because he's one of the good guys. The other race, which came down to 207 votes between them, Mitzi and thank you Nancy Viejo won. I was very thankful about that. So was happy that Nancy stood on top because I can't stand Mitzi. Plus she's a quitter and she does who does she help? And she was censured from the rec and ... She wouldn't give back the damn mic at the Republican women's luncheon I was at. So
and she quit in the middle of her term.
And people are I did. And she beat me because it was one of these races that they put a third in, which I don't care because God had bigger plans, and I've been thriving ever since. But this woman is a waste, and so I was so thankful she lost. I have to say, talking local politics, so that race was huge. And then, I was trying to help Rhonda Woodward win against Dunn, and how do you beat that if you don't have millions of dollars? So I was frustrated at that one because if you look at Dunn's social media for the last few months, he's done nothing, And then when you started talking to all these people in the 15 counties, they let you know he's never available. His staff doesn't contact them. So I don't know what he's doing, honestly. So I was very frustrated with that whole August 20th outcome overall. How about you all?
Well, to me, sadly, and especially the numbers-wise on Dunn was sad. I forgot who it was. I think it was Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin that said once the people realize they can vote themselves benefits from the Treasury, the Republic will cease to exist, right?
Yeah.
And that's quite frankly where we stand. And it's kind of like the mask, draw back to everything's local. It's kind of like the mask thing here. I mean, there are certain principles that an American that you must adhere to. And if you are excited about or glad that your congressman is bringing literally a bag of pork rinds home from the $7 trillion budget, and that makes your life much better while your country is going into bankruptcy, and he's voting to fund the deep state, the FBI investigations, the Russia, you name it. He's voting to fund all these things. Then you shouldn't be surprised at the results you get, and you find us where we're at now, because it doesn't matter who the president is. I mean, obviously it matters who the president is. But you saw Trump's inability to get a lot of things done, even with the Republican House, because people like Mr. Dunn, sadly, were supporting the likes of Liz Cheney and the leadership that were stabbing him in the back at every turn. And, of course, people, I don't know if they don't ever connect the dots. They won't listen if you tell them, because they quote unquote know this person and he's their friend and he came to the diner next to their house or something. So, I mean, it's back on the we the people. If you're going to fix that, that makes sense.
Well, it was funny because today somebody called out, because Rubio on his X posted, Save Babies ad, and they were like, it was the Babylon Bee guy, Seth Dillon, I think is his name, I follow, and he said, where is Rubio? He hasn't said anything on Amendment 4. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, because I watch a lot of national news, and normally Rubio's everywhere, and he hasn't been anywhere. And I was like, yes, why the hell hasn't he been out there fighting for Amendment 4 to which next week I've got Griffiths coming on, and I'm dying to know how this amendment even ended up on the Florida ballot, to which allows up to partial birth abortion. Like Dr. Alveda King, I just saw something on X, is going, Florida, wake up. You better vote no on this. So I don't know what happens to these politicians. They go up there and then sometimes they disappear. I will say Congressman Gates was out there the whole time fighting, and then I was so pissed that McCarthy spent $3 million trying to take him out. Couldn't we spend that $3 million somewhere else?
Yeah, well, that comes back to what I was just talking about, who's going to support who. But, back to Rubio, it's first do no harm. And trust me, I am not a Rubio fan. It's kind of like with the mask thing. I don't think in Republican politics, if you voted for stolen electors in 2020, and please spare me, you didn't know it was stolen in 2020. That if you're that dumb, then you shouldn't be representing yourself, at the line at Chipotle. You should have somebody ordering for you. Please spare me that part. 30% of Democrats polled knew the election was stolen by December 18th.
Well, aren't we seeing that it's probably stolen based on Zuckerberg came out with his little letter, his mea culpa. I didn't do anything, and I'm not going to do anything going forward. So I'm like, I can't believe he did that, honestly. So I guess he feels like he's in trouble.
Yeah, well, he's trying to cover his base so he's not the first one arrested, which he should be in the first group that is arrested. But Rubio is just, the first wave, and people, it's not retribution, it's justice. We're going to bring justice. If justice prevails, we'll bring justice. But Rubio's practicing that rule, right? First, do no harm to your next election.
Well, it's so
be
annoying.
quite
I'm
frank,
sick of that. All these people, they only care about themselves, and then they're not fighting for the people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's really no win here for him. And once again, trust me, the reason I didn't go to his meeting when he came to town is because I was going to ask him, right? And, of course, I would have been booed and probably asked to leave. How are you here standing before us asking to vote for you when you voted for stolen electors? But that being said, just from a political strategy perspective, stay out of the state battles and let them fight themselves out.
Well, and back to the Mitzi Prater race, her ass better not be a delegate anymore. Okay, I'm tired of this. Tell me if I'm wrong. Why are you laughing,
no,
John? I can see John on camera laughing at me, and then he's got his shirt that says "Control Freak" on it.
Freak, yeah.
Which I need a shirt like that, John. But no, I'm done with her. And that was the thing. Before she ever won the state committee women's race, it was Thelma Rowan. And I used to go with Thelma, and then I went with another state committee woman would invite me from another county to these meetings. And guess whose ass was always there in the middle of it, and she wasn't even the state committee woman at all. Then she gets the position and quits, and then she ends up being the damn delegate. I was, like, ticked about that.
Oh, no, trust me, I understand. I understand. And I've noticed something about especially the Never Trumpers. They kind of run in the same circles with the Democrats, is they have no shame. I mean, if I were her, back when John was the committeeman, we couldn't fill the rec room for the party headquarters. At some point you were loaded up, I guess, maybe after 2008 or 10, and you were at the school board, and we moved back to Republican headquarters. And, there may be 8. If we had 10, we had a quorum, didn't we, John?
Yeah. Something well, like I was say when I was chairman, we had 75 active members, and I could have 150 volunteers in with no problem. We were doing sine waves.
When I first joined, when I moved here almost 11 years ago, it was packed. There was $90,000 in the budget, and it wasn't so horrifically painful. So
right, and then you got run into the ground. Just
Well, by 16, right? There was nobody there.
Yeah.
But see, I think this is this is one of the problems, quite frankly, with American politics and the people. I mean, I hate to say it, but everybody kind of came. So I have admonished the group that's here now, and it's basically gone this way for the past 40 years. You had a surge with the Christian Coalition that came in and try and take over the Republican Party, and let's just say turn it more right. Not turn it into the church, but turn it more right, let's say. That slowly faded because they didn't see the results, and they kept doing the same thing, just voting for the Republican because they thought if they voted for the Republican, they did their job, when they didn't delineate during the primary. Then came the Tea Party. This is when they were stocked up there, and everybody's in there. And then now the election's stolen in 2020. Next thing you know, we need to go back to the school board meeting room, and I've asked Phil about that a couple, 3 times because there's not enough room. People are standing outside the door to get in.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's all going to fade if you don't see the results, and you don't see the results when you don't do your work and take the people out in the primary that should be taken out, or you don't demand and get the results. I know a lot of people.
Am I the only one that's frustrated with Congressman Dunn? Because I even tried to have him come and show up at a project where I was hired for this $50 million project with a billionaire, and I couldn't get his staff to call me back. It was embarrassing. And it wasn't about me and Congressman Dunn. It was about having a congressman come and wine and dine a billionaire that potentially wanted to do more business here in Bay County. Nobody called me back. So I'm like, what is he attending? This is a $50 million project. It wasn't my project. So I'm just so frustrated.
You see, I think if you were to quote unquote survey the rec now, I'm guessing it's almost like the election results. It would be 80-20 that they're mad at him, right? For his It's malfeasance. So let's just say the Liz Cheney vote. Let's just use that as an example. But that does not translate out into the people being aware of that and even mattering to them. Like we were talking about, as long as he brought home the pork and he can, put out the press release about, about shipbuilding, get a $6 billion contract, which they canceled. But I mean, there's a prime example. What is the pulpwood plant that they closed down? I forgot what county it was in.
They closed ours
down? Yeah, the paper plant.
Ours is gone.
Yeah. They just closed one recently in the past year or so, maybe in January, I think it was. And he was all up in arms, and he had a Facebook post.
Okay, but he shows up to nothing. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, no, and let me finish here. I'll connect the dots for you. But he gave this big speech how he was mad they didn't call him. They're a private business. They don't have to tell you anything. It's none of your damn business when they're making a decision to close a plant. But his big thing was that he had got $2 million in the budget to build a railway line to there to make it easier to bring the trees there so that they could make them into paper. Now, in what planet should we be spending $2 million to build a railway line there, and then the people look at that as a benefit to their constituents? Because what that came with was selling you back out, like I said, with the FBI investigations, the IRS agents. Okay, so maybe he voted against some of these things, but he still voted for the continuing resolutions or whatever, like the last one, that it took the Democrats literally to pass because you had 135 Republicans vote no. But he voted in favor of that budget. And unless the people are going to be mad about that and do something about it, then
well, he never shows up, so they're not going to be able to tell him what they think anyway. So
I don't think he cares. I don't think he cares because he doesn't. It's the power of the incumbency, I mean, once you get in there, you're kind of in there, and it takes something like in when we got Steve Southern elected, I mean the outrage. We had the Obamacare thing passed, and
yep.
We had Boyd was the congressman at the time, and I mean they were literally hanging effigies of Boyd down at the community college at the rallies.
I went to one of his. I actually went to one of his right. Town halls. Oh my gosh, it was rough.
Yeah, but that's the level of you got to be bad it takes to get an incumbent taken out, and that was hard. Yeah, so it's not a minor piece of work to take out.
We only have 10 minutes left, gentlemen, because I've got another guest coming up here. But how are you seeing Trump, Rex? Do you think we're going to take it? And then just breaking, he said when he's in office, he's going to release the Epstein list, and I'm like, now I'm even more worried because I'm like, oh my gosh, bullseye on your back, buddy. Please don't say that till after you're elected.
Yeah.
And even I followed John Rich, the country star, and he's like, oh my gosh, right now. And so, breaking news, he has said he's going to release it. And then, so what are your thoughts on the election and then the partnerships that have come out of this? We've got Tulsi Gabbard, our Wonder Woman, has joined the team. RFK Jr., which I want the school or the food supply cleaned up. Maybe that's what's causing autism. What are your thoughts on all of this, Rex?
Well, I mean, to me, it's simple. It's almost Reagan-esque victory if the election is fair. It's just that simple. I mean, it won't be 49 states because, some states you'll never carry no matter what.
California is never going to vote Trump.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest with you, I'm not so sure. I think they have institutionalized fraud so well in California that it's impossible to put it into play because in I believe it was either 18 or 20, they basically had 5 House seats stolen. That basically flipped the House in 18. Subsequently, we have, quote unquote, won back some of those. But it's going to be it'll be a landslide if it's a fair election. I'm not so sure my home state, which I hate to claim now, Georgia, has fair elections. my thing is you have to be worried. So I did on my podcast this Sunday, Divorce or Civil War on Rumble. I did a segment on RFK. My opening segment was about RFK and all the recent converts, quote unquote, to Trumpism, populism, conservatism, quote unquote, we need to save the republic. Well, the sad part is for RFK, Brett Weinstein, and all these people, and Naomi Wolf, who would have had national health care if she had her way, and you would have got the vax whether you liked it or not, right? That's the one thing that converted her, supposedly, is that they don't see downrange or they don't connect the dots of why we're here. RFK is very good in his lane, but you need to keep him in a single bicycle lane. I just saw a tweet from him about the shooting at Parkland. The shooting in Parkland was not, he said the NRA is a terrorist organization. The NRA is not a terrorist organization. The shooting in Parkland was for one reason and one reason only. The school system had hired a superintendent from Chicago from Obama land, one of Obama's friends, to come down there. He is the reason that every 3 months you got your reset if you were a minority, so you wouldn't be thrown out of school. So that kid had the cops called on him over 40 times, cops and the FBI, and he was still in school and was able to perpetrate that. And the same goes for all of the social policies of the likes of RFK. I don't know if Tulsi Gabbard has actually woken up or not. But you see that you cannot have socialism without tyranny, and the output that they want and still want, quote unquote, is a socialist, if you will, nation. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah, it does. I heard an interview today with Nicole Shanahan, who was RFK's vice presidential pick.
I'm actually looking at her ex right now. It's cracking
she was
me
talking
up.
to Glenn Beck, and I mean, it was astonishing to listen to her. She's like, "Look, I'm a traditional liberal Democrat, and I see what's going. I woke up finally. Because of what they did to RFK and me, I finally woke up and looked and saw that the Democrat Party is not Democrat at all anymore. They are this socialist communist party now, and that's not who she is. She's still a liberal Democrat in the traditional sense of the word, but she's not a Democrat Party member anymore. She's quit.
Well,
and she's supporting Trump.
And you see this with the delusion, though, of RFK, for example. Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, and I was a hippie. The hippies, I was a hippie on campus college. That's about 10 years before me. But the only people that were ever in the Democrat Party that were anti-war were JFK, the Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard crowd, maybe, which I'm not even sure they were, but JFK was because he had seen real war. But the Democrat Party was never anti-war. They had started every war up until the Gulf War, and they would not get out of any war. It was Nixon that got us out of Vietnam. So they were never the party. You may have had that, like I say, on your yacht, that may have been the anti-war party, but the Democrat Party at its foundation has always been, since its formation of the KKK, on the wrong side, if you will, of history for the most part, with selected people in there.
So are you liking this merger with RFK Jr. and Tulsi? I mean, I think we're reaching new people, and you can see it on X because the RFK Jr. people are posting, oh my gosh, thank you, and the reception we're getting from the Trump family is wonderful, and we're going to follow him because he's going to do good things. And Tulsi's been right there for a while.
Anything that adds to your coalition obviously is good, but Trump needs to make sure that he keeps RFK in his lane. Put him ahead of HHS or the CDC or the FDA or whatever. But he needs to stay in his lane because he is still a social welfare. Right? Yeah, he's still a social welfare Democrat, which has destroyed the black family. See, part of the realization of some of the things that he hasn't realized, right? The Great Society, part of JFK's push is that you've destroyed the black family. Now you're going to have to come and admit that your welfare state drove 50% of the fathers out of the home, which destroyed the family. I mean, don't take my word for it. Take Barack Obama's word for it.
Well, I'm laughing because what was it? California was like, we're going to give you black people reparations. And then they're like, nope, psych. And now all the black people this weekend were like up in arms. And so that's the other thing. I'm tired of this. Let's give everybody everything for free, Rex.
Well, that's always been a lie to them. I mean, you've got Nancy Pelosi's email that said, don't promise the black people anything, they're going to vote for us. Not her words, not my words, her words. A Republican out in California, I got his name, I forwarded it on my X account. He brought that bill to the floor to get a vote on it, and the Democrats wouldn't let it go to the floor. It was all a ruse, a lie from day one.
Well, I'm just tired of this reparations thing. And then, of course, when they're always trying to, how many times did Biden say he was going to pay for somebody's, college loan? So, I don't know. I'm going to go get a degree in, shopping, and then he can pay for that. My husband would appreciate that.
I thought you were going to get your PhD in shopping.
I was going to say, I thought you already had at least a master's.
Thank you.
In that.
Yes, Dr. TJ Maxx. He's my BFF.
Actually, it's actually funny because I wrote a blog, and it's along the lines of Thomas Sowell, and then also put what I call a short on my Rumble channel that addresses the reparations thing. And if you want to play that game, if you really want to play the reparations game, then the money will not be going to the black community.
No.
If you want to take a historical perspective.
Indians?
No, it will be going to all three of us, because literally the root of the word slave comes from Slav, that was enslaved by the brown and black people. The Slavic people are actually the root of the word, and it gets worse from there.
Okay, well, nobody gives me anything for free, right?
Look, I don't want it. I don't want it, right? I don't want it. I don't want it.
I always laugh, because of Kamala Harris's background is particularly relevant there, where her father's family from Jamaica owned slaves. And then you've had, I've seen black conservative commenters talk to these black liberals and are sitting here talking about their reparations and stuff. And it's like, look, blacks owned slaves in the United States. And it was I think 10% of the slaves were owned by black slave masters. Okay.
Yep.
And they're like,
and they own white people too.
Right. And you had indentured servitude. I mean, you had all kinds of stuff going on back then, that people don't talk about, but it's like, okay, so do those black people that own black slaves, do they have to pay reparations, or do they get reparations?
Yeah,
they're going to get a pass. Did you, Rex, oh my gosh, I've just been exhausted because I feel like I've spent so much of my life logging hours watching the DNC, and then I watched the CNN interview, and it was the worst thing ever. Did you watch the CNN interview with Kamala and her lapdog, Timmy?
Oh,
Timmy,
no.
Timmy the puppet.
I have sworn off watching any libtard news because I know what they're going to say. I don't, I cruise the Twitter here, the X, and I get the gist of it. I know what they're going to say before they say it. There's actually some social science studies out there that prove this. I forgot. I think his name, he's a Jordan Peterson acolyte, or Hyatt, I believe is his name. And he's actually collected the data, and he's like, liberals have no idea what a conservative is going to say. Conservatives know what liberals are going to say.
Well, last night I listened to, it was 4 former retired enlisted troops in the Minnesota Guard. Megyn Kelly interviewed them, and they had nothing for Tim Walz, and not to mention how many times they tried to have him cease and desist with that he was a command sergeant major. So, wow, it was hurtful to him.
Yep,
and not to mention
war,
not to mention, And I put it on X today because I saw this Saturday, Kamala came out with a tweet, and it was about Trump going to Arlington Cemetery and how he's bringing politics into it. And of course, the families slayed her. Like, there was like 12 videos from the Abbey Gate families going, "This is BS. We invited him. We were okay with the cameras." And it's funny because this morning when I went to look back, guess what was deleted off Kamala's account? And I had screenshot it. So I shared it on my X because they had nothing for her, I have to tell you. And then to try to slam the Gold Star families that had already suffered enough. And then you saw dumbass Biden on the beach. What was that, day 17, you know?
Yes, asleep on the beach.
Well, so look, we all know he's not been in charge. But look, they knew he had dementia in 2019. Tucker covered that, and he had people telling him already that he had dementia. We knew this during the debates in 2020, right? Mm-hmm. Once again, it's back to they know no shame. So I don't really need to listen to them. If the most absurd thing I can think that they might say, I'm probably not absurd enough. So and that's one of the things that really bothers me about politics. I'm different in this way, and I don't necessarily hate it, but I just despise retail politics, baby kissing and stuff like that. People should evaluate based on what you stand for, what you say you're going to do, and have you done it, as opposed to, did I come by and knock on your door and say, hey? Just because I knocked on your door and said, hey, or I go to the same church that you go to, or I'm in the Lions Club or whatever, that does not mean that I'm going to represent your interests and take my oath to the Constitution seriously. And too many times it turns into, prom king and queen. And you see what we got.
I somewhat disagree with you on that, Rex. I think the people that show up and knock on your door and talk to you and listen that's a different kind of person. Okay. That's not your modern politician. The modern politicians think they can buy their office through advertising, through media consultants. I mean, it's all about sound bites and imagery. And that's not retail politics. That's an illusion. It's sort of like the Biden thing. Biden, his basement strategy from 2020, that was an illusion. And the Kamala thing, it's an illusion. That's not what's going on. Somebody's running this country.
Well, I saw that today. The story was, how are they going to shape her? How they're trying to create her as this presidential Barbie that we all want to vote for, and the woman is so dumb. I listened to the press conference yesterday with her, or her rally. She couldn't even. There was no policies that her or Biden, who they dusted off, and he made a fool of himself. There was nothing there. There's no substance. Just like the 4 nights that I suffered through the DNC. It was Orange Man bad and Let's Kill Babies. That was it.
I liked him singing the national anthem. I thought that was like the highlight of the DNC.
Oh, please. I want combat pay for this. Oh, somebody please pay me something.
John, I think you and I are just I don't think we're in disagreement. We're just different sides of the same coin. And what I mean by that is I am not opposed or not against contacting, talking to, meeting with the voters and doing that. I'm just against the illusion that people put on that means they care or they're going to do the right thing. Right. And in modern day politics, at the mayor level, let's say for Stewart, this is achievable. But let's just take Rhonda, for example. Is there any way in Hades that she could have knocked on, unless she started 2 years earlier, let's say even 20% of the voters that vote in the Republican primary in the 2nd district?
Well, you just hit on it. You just hit on it, Rex. And everybody, when I was chairman, I had people coming out of the damn woodwork, talking to me saying, I want to run for Congress. I want to run against Boyd and beat him, and all this kind of stuff. And the first thing I asked was, can you take off 2 years?
Yeah, this take off 2 years.
Right. It's 250 miles wide. Okay. It's the biggest district in the United States.
And I helped with her campaign. And let me tell you how many people in these other counties wouldn't even host her because they're like, nope, we're for Congressman Dunn. And I'm just like, but they won't even open the door for somebody else that actually is going to show up. And that was the funny thing. He wouldn't even show up to half these places that weren't letting her go.
But that's where the retail politic part comes in that Rex is talking about, where it takes you 2 years because you have to travel the district and hit all these places. It takes a lot of time. Now I'll give you a good example here. When Don Gates was running for the Senate, he knocked on 80,000 doors. Okay, think how many that is. 80,000 in the Senate district here. That's a lot of space. But he put the effort in. He got organized and he put in the effort, and he had, they were out in mass doing this, but that was his goal, was to get out there and talk to the people. And so, you can do it now. Granted, presidential level, it's kind of hard, but you have surrogates, and that's why you have campaign organizations and stuff like that to get people out to represent you. But it's again the opposite. And Dunn's a good example of this. He's just coasting.
He's
literally coasting, and he knows he doesn't have to do anything, and he's going to win.
And he hasn't done anything, and I've been like, I am for some reason I'm always the complaint box of when people don't do the right thing here, from the police chief to Congressman Dunn to Mitzi Prater. I am your complaint box, so I'm going to start charging $5 for each complaint because then I can.
Was it Lucy charged 5 cents for?
I'll be freaking rich, people. I can afford my TJ Maxx fund, But
get your PhD in shopping.
Well, here's the other thing. Why VP Harris now is launching her tour of South Florida, 50 stops with her reproductive rights. Bus tour, and I saw the damn bus. Why is she even stepping foot into Florida? Tell me this. And what kind of demonic party is so, like, I've been battling as we've been on the air here with somebody on a pro-life, Joel Berry from Babylon Bee, the managing editor, is phenomenal. He's been on my show before, and he's such a huge pro-lifer and has like 4 kids. And so he posted about what each abortion trimester, what was involved. And this lady now was battling me, what does their thing? Are you going to adopt them all? Who's going to help these women? It's always the same shiza. And now we're going to have this Yahoo VP Harris running around our state with her big Dolly Parton bus for reproductive rights. And really, I want you to have your birth control, because then maybe we won't have to deal with all these libs.
Oh, I'm all for her running around the state and wasting her time. Believe me.
I'm shocked. Why would she even come here? Honestly,
she's not gonna win Florida. There's just no way. But that's what I'm saying. To me, it's like, fine, let her waste her time.
Okay, well then I'm on board. 50 stops in Florida.
But they think the abortion issue. See, they overvalue abortion, and that's the problem. Is they think it's going to drive all these people to the polls. I'll be honest with you. I think the marijuana Amendment 3 is going to,
which I wanted to end on that.
Going to drive more people to the polls than Amendment 4 is. To be honest with you.
Yes, Amendment 3. And I was very pissed off at Trump because he stepped in it, and Joe Gruters has fully stepped in it, and Christina Pushaw that works for Governor DeSantis has been pushing back, and which, fine, smoke your damn pot, but I don't need it to be legal. And how many dispensaries do we have here, gentlemen, in our town? They're freaking everywhere now with your medical marijuana. So people are obviously getting pot, not a problem.
Well, I drove by the mall and saw that they turned the old Steak and Shake into some kind of a giant vape shop. I mean, it's like great. The money they spent on that thing is incredible.
Great.
But yeah.
And then Trump stepped in it saying, which I don't need you to be in jail for 5 years, but I don't need to smell your stuff. And so I've been battling people on that too, constantly trying to slay the dragons on saving babies and keep your pot to your freaking self.
Okay, where to start? All right, but see, there's more to the story on the pod story than meets the eye. That once again,
millions has been spent promoting it, and Joe Gruder, top of the food chain, who's been hand in hand with Trump.
But John
I'm like,
and John Morgan, don't forget him.
Well, I don't know him, but I know Joe Gruters has been a Trumper forever, our national committee man, and so I put out there, he's probably never going to come on my show again, and I was like, since when do you push a Nikki Fried agenda item? Give me a freaking break.
Okay, all right. So here's, and I'm surprised a little bit at John, but maybe not so much. I thought he was more libertarian leaning. I personally am for it because, like Trump, I have seen the number of lives that have been ruined by the fact that pot is illegal. And you also need to go back and learn the history of this. This came out of the 1918 movement of, Prohibition. And when a bunch of people, mostly, how shall we say, the day's white-tarred Karens, which were Gertrudes, right? And they panned pot and alcohol that's, killing everybody and yada, 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 and got some people to go along with it. But that has ruined so many lives that it's not funny. Every day I go out to the beach, I go out about 5 days a week. I smell pot out there. We have the ability, unlike the governor said, to regulate whether you can smoke it or not. And guess who was the author of the law that pushed through that the governor signed that gives the city council and the county the ability to do it? And that would be none other than Joe Gruters in his first term. After he was elected, he put forth 63 bills, none of which were reinforcing freedom, but restricting freedom. And one of those bills was giving the city and the county the ability to regulate where you can smoke in state parks or on the beach, or at least in the part they owned, on the beach. But you could only do it for vaping, because vaping is killing the environment, and cigarettes, but you could not do it for cigars. So they can stand out there right now on the beach, thanks to our city council, and smoke a whole box of cigars, throw the butts down.
Which I love a cigar. Don't
off.
take my cigar away.
well, no, we're back to where we are about the taxes. Equal treatment before the law, no taxation without representation.
Get this. Her Christina Peshwa, I can never say her name, just literally posted, and there's a website or a X called Vote No on 3, which I've started following, and they just pushed out the push to rewrite Florida's constitution to create a right to use recreational marijuana, but only if it's sold by certain bigwig corporations. It's not about what's best for our state. It's about corporate greed. Voting no on Amendment 3 means standing for the safety and health of our communities and against special interests trying to grab monopoly control of the marijuana market. There you have it.
What's rule one?
No.
What's rule one?
Well, John and I are going together to get this tattoo, and it's "Follow the Money," and it's got a big Benjamin on it.
You bet.
Okay, all right.
See, I got a bicep. I've been working out here.
Yeah. Hold up. I'm gonna bust your bubble. I'm gonna bust your bubble. No, the money. No, follow the other money. And John, you know this, capitalism 101. Follow the other money. The money that is in the game that is voting now are the doctors and the dispensaries that had limited license, limited capacity to grow, which artificially inflates the price. Right now, someone that has a medical marijuana card has to go, quote unquote, to a doctor every 6 months and pay $300. Pay $300 to get a bullshit certificate that says they need to smoke pot because they can't sleep, which some people that may be true.
There are dispensaries all over this town, and then when I turned 50 and my husband rented this fancy exotic convertible car, I was in Vegas the weekend. I tell this story all the time when it became legal, and it was the worst weekend of my life because everybody was smoking pot at every corner, every light. It was horrific. And then that's the funny thing. You look at all these dispensaries, they're so beautiful. They're always
right, because there's money there. They're like banks.
And it's cash only, John. Where are these people getting the cash to pay for this? I'm telling you.
Well, that's part of the problem.
And I do want to always say, as a breast cancer survivor of almost 7 years, I am pro medical marijuana if you actually are in pain and need it. But I'm telling you, half these people, more than half, probably 90% of them, don't need it.
Right, so. It's so easy to get. But Rex, I'm not. It's not to me. It's not a freedom issue. Okay, I have major medical concerns about the side effects of marijuana, particularly.
John and I have covered it many times.
We've talked to a number of experts on this stuff. The psychosis,
gateway drug.
It is. You go to all these shootings. What's the common thread? Every one of these shooters is a pothead. Okay, there is real psychosis effects associated with that drug. There's real and documented mental diminishment, associated with using this drug, particularly for youngsters, for teenagers. It's not something that they should be doing, And as a society, why are we hamstringing? Why are we destroying our own kids by allowing this stuff? This is not the marijuana from when, I'm 69, okay? This is not the marijuana from when I was a teenager, okay? We're talking about.
Yeah.
This stuff is much, much more powerful. It's been purified. It's been bred, to have such high levels of THC in it.
All right. Well, John,
and
we've got to let Rex wrap it. Rex,
I'm not there for freedom.
Do your final thought on pot, and then a final thought on what you think how November's going to land, and then we got to call it.
Gotcha. Okay. No, hey, look, John, I'm with you on that as far as the concentration and what's happened to it. The stuff let's say in the 60s was 4, maybe 8%. Now you probably can't find a dispensary under 12%. And it goes up from there. And then obviously the impacts on you are greater. But this is just the same argument with the alcohol. Drink a couple light beers versus a couple shots of tequila or what have you. And that goes on the personal responsibility scale. And trust me, in a perfect world, no one would drink alcohol. No one would smoke marijuana. But once something is in the quote unquote natural man altered form of the original marijuana, let's say a 4 to 8%, which would you rather have on the road? Somebody smoking pot or somebody who drunk a 12-pack and about 6 shots of tequila?
I don't want either.
Right,
on the
either,
road.
because they're both
Zero.
diminished capacity.
Not disagreeing. I'm just saying the toxicity level has changed because man has messed with it.
Right.
Same with, for example, cocaine. Cocaine is not cocaine. Cocaine, quote unquote cocaine, coca leaves used to be in coke. You could eat the whole damn bush and you wouldn't even get a buzz. You just numb your teeth because God put it there for that reason, right? When they mix it with ammonia and gasoline to make what people sniff, it's a completely different animal.
Okay.
Right? Now, how you regulate that? That's a whole nother argument.
All right, Rex. Now, wrap it on Trump. Yes, do we need to be worried? Are we going to win it in November?
The only thing you need to be worried about is whether or not they're going to steal it or not. And in Georgia, I have no confidence. I just watched a conference call with a press release with voter GA, who's been trying to clean up the rolls. And do you realize they have still not turned over the ballots to voter GA, even though the state Supreme Court has ordered Fulton County to do it? No one is in jail. Ruby Freeman and her daughter are suing Rudy Giuliani, trying to take his house here and in New York, in Florida and in New York, and all his possessions.
It just sucks.
Yeah, all his possessions, because he told the truth about Ruby Freeman, who literally shot a live Facebook video of herself going back to work after 2 days off in the Georgia World Congress Center, counting absentee ballots with no return address on them. She showed you the stack. The FBI went to her house and had her delete all of her Facebook postings about how she was going to save us from that racist Trump. So given no one is in jail and Brian Kemp is either in on it or scared because they killed his son-in-law to be in a quote-unquote one-car accident, I have no confidence in the election system in any state. And to be honest with you, I'm not very confident here in Florida either. It's just that you don't need that to make the equation.
Well, didn't we see that August 20th when what happened that night? We had a glitch that it wasn't showing up like the precinct numbers when people were turning them in, I guess. Or was there some sort of glitch?
That was a reporting software. There was some kind of internet problem with it, but that wasn't the vote counting. That was different. Two different pieces of software, okay? Not the vote counting stuff.
Okay.
you go back to vote Joe Gruters, for example, and Joe actually put 2 pieces of legislation on the Senate that didn't make it to the floor to try and tighten up our elections. Go down there right now. I have a friend. His name's Jeff Borgino. He helped me do some texting work around here when we were asking about the mask question. Are people for it, against it, or the smoking ordinance, actually, 1597 in the city. And so he did some texting work for me. But he's running down there. He's running against a Democrat that, guess who appointed? Ron DeSantis appointed her. She was, quote unquote, a Republican then in 2018 when he dismissed the former Palm Beach County supervisor elections. He appointed this lady. She said she wasn't going to run. Kind of local, sounds like home, maybe a county commissioner. But anyway, she said she wasn't going to run. She ran as a Democrat in 2020. Now she's running again in 2024. And as far as I can tell, I talked to the gentleman yesterday, our governor has not lifted a finger to try and get a supervisor elections elected that's a Republican trying to clean up the system.
Well, I don't like to hear that, but we'll have to have you back, Rex, because we've been talking to Rex Reid. He's a political pundit, and tell everybody where your X is so they can follow it, since I had a hard time finding it today.
Okay. It's at Real, REALD, as in dog, or CW, Civil War, actually. That's what my podcast is on Rumble. It's Divorce or Civil War. We want a divorce. We don't advocate for violence. We want a amicable separation.
Okay, well, I want a divorce from Kamala and Biden, just so you know. So we'll end it there.
We'll just divorce the states that are going to vote for her.
Well, there you go.
It's that simple.
We'll have you back because it was great talking local and then, of course, national. We've been talking to Rex Reid. He's here in the Panhandle, one of our political pundits, Republican warrior. And God bless you, Rex, for joining Veronica Live. It's been a pleasure.
God bless both of you, and I appreciate having both of you on. John, it's good to speak to you again. Hadn't seen you and heard from you in a while, but always good to hook back up.
Okay.
Thanks, Rex.
Follow
appreciate
us on Veronica Live is on all the all the social media platforms out there. So do follow the show, and we'll be right back. Thanks.